Yeah, we're still locked down, alright? No bars, cinemas, or restaurants to go to. And with Valentine's Day fast approaching, you've got to wonder how dates are going to be set up with, well, nowhere to go. If you're in the market for some advice, let me pitch you this. You and your significant other, or you and your lonesome self, you are enough, you are a catch. You get yourself comfy, you sit yourself down on the sofa, you snuggle up with some nice Valentine's Day chocolates, and you watch the romance films that are taking the world by storm. The Twilight Saga.
It may sound like an overplayed joke, but Twilight has actually been making quite the comeback in the last year or so. The films were all pretty popular on Netflix, and there was even another novel released, Midnight Sun. So the question is, why is all this unfolding? Is this a Hook-type situation, where what's generally considered a solid product today was unfairly hated at release? Or is this more like the Star Wars prequels, where they were always bad, but at least now we can be a bit more nostalgic with them? At any rate, it doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon, so let's take a look at it.
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
The first book in what would come to be known as the Twilight Saga was published in 2005 as the first novel by Stephenie Meyer. She based the story on a dream she had about a human girl and a teenage vampire who had fallen in love in spite of the latter's animalistic desire for the blood of the former. This blossomed into a 4-book franchise with vampires, werewolves, Vatican cults, and just the worst baby names.
Renesmee.
She'd managed to appeal to a comfy little niche of young adult readers who found the central conceit romantic, which ballooned into a Goliath of a fanbase in the following years. But, as all things must be balanced in this hectic world, the series brought about more than a little derision from the wider public, especially when the series was adapted into film. Twilight became a very binary issue, being labelled as the downfall of humanity or the greatest art to have ever arted at the same time. But before we can discuss which side was in the right, we'll have to do some plot synopsis first.
Also, by the way, I'll just be talking about the Twilight films, because films are much more my wheelhouse, and my dumb caveman brain couldn't be bothered to read 4 whole books for this dumb internet thing. So, with that in mind, let's start off with 2007's Twilight.
Bella Swan is a teenage girl who moves from Phoenix, Arizona to the gloomy Forks, Washington. When she arrives, everyone falls over themselves to get her attention, except for the Cullen family, a seemingly incestuous bunch of pasty teens who will be named by these funny sounds they make me think of. Wah. Smooth. The one who catches Bella's eye is Edward, who's actually pretty dismissive of her at first because, damn girl, you stanky. But then he saves her from a car, and then he saves her from some bad dudes, so, they fall in love. Also, he can read minds, but he can't read her mind, because, that would make it a bit too yikes. They hang out in the woods for a bit. Edward reveals that he's a vampire, and the two start a relationship. He invites her to a baseball game / Muse concert, and some bad lads try to crash the party. There's some mild threats, then they have to head off to do some murders. Eventually, Bella heads to Jacksonville because she fears for her life, but bad lad number 1 attacks her. He bites her, and she dies. Edward kills bad lad 1, he sucks the bad lad juice out of Bella, and she comes back to life, but not as a vampire. Bella's kind of mad about this because she's literally lost out on immortality, but Edward makes up for it by taking her to the prom. Bella reads Romeo and Juliet for school. Edward says Othello is Shakespeare's real magnum opus and dumps her for being a theatre noob. Bella gets real sad and sits in her bedroom for a few months, and eventually she meets up with her childhood friend Jacob Black. Bad Lad 2 shows up and tries to take Bella to the vampire Illuminati, but Jacob and the boys turn into dogs and kill him off screen. Bella and Jacob build up a bit of a friendship, with Jacob wanting to get into her pants, but then Bad Lad 3 comes back and kills Jacob's dad and runs away. Bella tries to kill herself so that her boyfriend will hang out with her some more, and then sees this happening in the future, and tries to get Edward's attention. Jacob tells him over the phone that Charlie is planning a funeral, with no further detail, so Edward naturally jets off to Italy so he can kill himself. Bella follows him and stops him before the crowds see, and the two are captured and threatened by this vampire Illuminati. Edward is tortured, but the two manage to bargain their way out of the vampire Illuminati, but they will be keeping an eye on these plucky kids as the film ends. Bad Lad 3 is back and ready to rumble, making herself an army of freshly turned vampires to fight the Cullens and avenge her dog food boyfriend. Edward and Bella are hanging out. Jacob's mad because Bella picked Cold Boy over him, and he's out doing wolf stuff. When news of this nerd vampire army reaches the protagonist, they decide to make a cooler werewolf/vampire army and do some training in the woods. Shares his backstory of how he used to be a racist murderer, and now he's probably just a little bit racist, and the plan is hatched for Bella to be kept by her two boyfriends away from this big battle. The three go camping, and Edward reads Jacob's mind while he's spooning his girlfriend. Both of these dudes are actually really toxic, but Bella kisses Jacob so he doesn't put himself and Bella in danger.
He immediately puts them both in danger.
Bad Lad 3 and her new boyfriend show up, and they look like they might win this fight. But Bella slits her wrists and they kill her at the end. It just wouldn't be YA fiction without the finale being split into two parts. Breaking Dawn Part 1 is definitely the more predicted movie, but this is probably the wildest at the same time. Edward and Bella finally get married in Edward's parents' back garden. Bella imagines all of her friends and family dead at her feet. To be fair, she is probably very stressed. Jacob eventually shows up because he's the worst, and freaks out when these two plan on having sex. Postmarital sex is a sin, guys. Christ is watching. There's also a kid wolf who hangs out with Jacob now, and he does two things. First of all, he's really good, and you hope he doesn't get killed. And secondly, he shows that Jacob is really good with children. Anyway, the newlyweds fly to an island off Brazil for their honeymoon, and struggle to have sex for like half an hour movie time. When they do have sex, Bella gets immediately pregnant with a demon, and they scare some lady with it. Google Images won't tell them anything, and there's a whole pro-life debate which goes on, since this baby has the potential to be a magic Genghis Khan and will definitely kill Bella at one point. But they decide to keep it, and Jacob gets kicked out of his wolf pack by the alpha. Even though wolves don't have alphas. Maybe it's just people who think wolves have alphas, and it's the people side of them that does that. I don't know. Anywho, the furry squad surround the house, ready to kill that baby as soon as they get the chance, so everyone's stuck inside. Bella becomes a Skeletor and gets weirdly close to Jacob as she gets near her due date. Daddy Vamp gives Bella some blood in a takeaway cup to feed her abomination baby, and it's time for the birth scene! This horrific display where the demon baby is ripped out of Bella and she soon bleeds out and dies. All of the young girls in the audience throw up in their mouths and the baby is taken out of the room. Edward has a little nibble on his late wife, but decides not to eat her just yet. He'll keep her in the fridge for a while. Jacob goes downstairs to be mad at the baby who killed his true love, only to find this beast of a baby is his true love.
Okay.
Bella comes back to life as a vampire and we get credits. The final film in the Twilight Saga isn't much of a Twilight film at all. It mostly centers around Jacob's new girlfriend being wanted to join the Vampire Illuminati by Michael Sheen. The film shows the team building a ragtag group of vampires with terrible accents, and teaming up with the Sonic community once more. A lot of these vampires also just straight up have X-Men powers. Even Bella had special X-Men powers when she was a human. She has the power to make everyone around her less interesting, which really syncs up with the character, to be fair. Anywho, the armies meet in a snowy field, and Michael Sheen makes me proud to be Welsh with this laugh. And then everyone dies. Except everyone not dies, because Smooth only predicted that everyone would die, and shows Michael Sheen everyone dying to scare him, because he's scared of everyone dying. So he pieces out, and all of the Avengers who don't die just go away. And Edward and Bella chill out on the grass watching Twilight AMVs.
She wishes she was that awesome.
In case you haven't noticed, the Twilight series relies heavily on big emotionality, to the point where it supersedes logic.
It's kind of like a cheesy musical in that way, and as such, you can see why people would really get swept up in it and let themselves be taken along for the ride.
They would live by these stories as if they were sacred texts. To many, they were an obsession, really. And just like anything else that becomes too big and popular, they were people who rallied against it. For every 13-year-old girl who loved Twilight, there were 2,000 or 3,000 24-year-old men to ridicule her for it. The cast thought these films were trash. Critical outlets clearly thought the films were trash because they sent the most dude-bro interviewers to talk about it. But still, people loved this series. Twilight was a hot-button issue for some time, where those who loved it refused to buckle under all the weight of the criticism leveled against them.
They even managed to push through it all without becoming domestic terrorists. How about that?
At any rate, the years passed and there would be nary a mention of Twilight. It had proven itself disposable and had seemingly slipped out of memory. But when the internet does finally remember something, it remembers loud.
You nicknamed my daughter after the Loch Ness Monster?!
Anything can be memed these days, people just have to be aware of it. We're living through an age where people can revive entire films through memes, and there's nothing people love more than nostalgia.
Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, the Star Wars prequel, Shrek, B-Movie, all of these films have terabytes of memes floating through cyberspace, and the Twilight Saga might just be the newest member of that club. It makes perfect sense in hindsight. All these films were prominent in the 2000s, they all have sizable fan bases, and they all have glaringly awkward flaws. That doesn't mean they can't still be enjoyed. In fact, the contrary is true.
In this meta-modernist world, people can watch films with as much sincerity as irony. And as such, people can watch films and enjoy the parts they actually like, and still make fun of the parts which fall short, and that's an entirely valid school of criticism.
Twilight fits pretty comfortably into this. Just look at the TikToks, or how the series is looked at in this general renaissance.
Or renaissance, if you will.
But that leaves one question. What brought it back into relevance in the first place? Why are people thinking about Twilight again? Well, what set a precedent for Twilight in the first place? J.K. Rowling is gross, condescending, transphobic, and probably didn't Get Out. This isn't news at this point. She's made her thoughts on the trans community very clear. Even as an artist, her work has become retroactively tainted as she tries to recontextualize her work to make it more palatable, but in the process only shows her own ignorance. Her work is still popular, though, even if the opinion on the creator has shifted. Harry Potter fans still like Harry Potter, but many won't support J.K. Rowling. So this led to Harry Potter fans just taking their business elsewhere. And high on the line of succession is the Twilight Saga. To say that the Harry Potter series paved the way for Twilight wouldn't be unfair. Both rely on the central conceit that our regular human world could be interlinked with secret societies of fantastical creatures. Both rely on human protagonists who motivate the story and allow information to gradually be given to the audience, and both have a high emphasis on the teenage drama of a given situation, as well as the more serious stakes.
Twilight isn't ripping off Harry Potter, but the success of Harry Potter definitely influenced Twilight, and as such, when a bunch of disgruntled Harry Potter fans were looking for a new thing to associate with, you can see why many would migrate to the Twilight Saga.
Suddenly, it's not the Earth holding you here. And you would do anything, be anything she needs.
I don't think the Twilight Saga is of particularly high quality. As stories, I found the characters unlikable and the story badly paced.
As films, they're not great. The editing, performances, cinematography, nothing's that good, and the colour grade in the first film is the stuff of nightmares. But they're not boring. I watched them all in 2020, and they are all engaging, they're all exciting, they're all fun to watch. Above all else, they are entertaining.
These days, Twilight fans aren't really treated to as much disdain as they were 13 years ago. Time has obviously given people worse things to point and laugh at, like Twilight's spiritual successor, 50 Shades. And even the fan base itself has become more irreverent with the series. These fans are the first to laugh at this or that, and it's something really good to see.
After years and years of being ridiculed, Twilight and its fans are in a really good place, actually. Maybe we could all stand to be a bit more of a Twilight fan.